Welcome to the Soundtrap Education Summit, a free online event dedicated to empowering and amplifying student voice with the theme, Their Voice, Their World. We're bringing you inspiring and practical messages from musicians, educators, podcasters, students, and more that can help you make change in your classroom right away. I'm Matt Miller, author of Ditch That Textbook and the moderator of the summit. Our sponsor and host of the summit is Soundtrap, a collaborative and creative audio editing platform. Soundtrap for Education empowers students and teachers to explore creative sound recording in all subjects, for all ages, and all ability levels. You can sign up for their free online course to learn how to bring music and podcasting to your classroom at academy.soundtrap.com. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking all about theater and improv. And if you don't consider yourself a theater person, don't shut this video off right now, because we definitely have something for you, because these are the kinds of things that can, spark creativity and really bring out a different side of your students and the work that they do and the things that they create in your class. You might really be surprised by that. And so we've got two fantastic people to talk about this who have lots of experience when it comes to that. We've got Natasha, Jain, and we've got Batsheva, Frankel. So thank you both so much for joining us in this episode.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep, absolutely. So let's do introductions real quick. Natasha, do you want to tell us real quick who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I'm Natasha. I'm originally from the UK, but I'm currently living in Hong Kong. And for the last 3.5 years, I've been very heavily involved in theatre, commercials, radio presenting, a bit of YouTube, voiceover work. So I consider myself an actor here, and a lot of what I do is around improvisation. And yeah, just very fortunate to be doing something that I really love.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Okay, and Batsheva, how about you?
So I'm Batsheva, and I went to NYU. I was a drama major, and theater's always been a part of my life. In fact, every summer from college, I would teach theater to teens and preteens and also direct them. But I was interested in a film career and working actually as a film director. And so I did that I worked in film for a while, and then I kind of left it for, as I say, a more glamorous and lucrative career in education.
Nice.
And then I've been working in education for about 25 years. And I now I have a podcast called Overthrowing Education. And I'm an educational consultant with New Lens Ed. And that's what I do.
All right. You have lots of hats that you wear.
I do. Literally and figuratively.
Yes. There you go. That's right. So I thought we might kick this off a little bit, just taking kind of a wide, big picture view at the impact that theater has had on the both of you, as far as, how has it made you into the person that you are today? How has it affected you in, a variety of the arenas of your life? So Batsheva, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. For me, theater was such a huge part of my life growing up. I loved performing, and then later on, I really loved directing. And I think both of those skills just fed me so well in every other aspect of my life, the way I look at things, the way I could relate to things. And I definitely remember in my first year of teaching feeling like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm just going to act like I do know what I'm doing. I'm going to pretend like I am a teacher and see what happens. And it actually worked. I somehow convinced everybody. So I told my mom, see, that 4 years of NYU paid off.
Yeah, there you go. I love that. That's cool. And Natasha, how about you?
I think theatre's been part of my life from a very young age. And when I first was involved in, sort of drama at school, it was a really wonderful way to be able to express myself in a safe space. Anything went. There were no sort of rules and regulations when it came to theatre. And that was incredibly liberating in what was essentially a very structured school system. So I really, really relished that because I didn't really enjoy the traditional way of learning. So theatre was really great for me. And then as I got older, it became a place to sort of escape to, you know, being able to witness these really beautiful stories come to life. It just takes you to it sort of transports you to another world. And I really loved that. And I found that theatre really increased my confidence. It gave me skills, you know, really similar to what Batsheva was saying, is that it gives you a whole host of other skills, builds your confidence. And I found that I was then acting as many characters in my life, which meant that I could feel much more confident. For example, when I went for an interview for a corporate job, you know, I said, okay, I'm going to act this part today. And that was wonderful. And when I started teaching, I saw that happening for students as well. And I just knew that there was sort of magic in this space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the thing that I was hoping we could touch on a little bit, is the way that this could potentially affect students in all different parts of the educational setting. So help me break down this stereotype a little bit, okay? It feels to me like in all of the schools and school systems that I've been a part of, in many ways, it's almost like theater lives in this little walled garden in the auditorium. And, you know, in a lot of the other classrooms and everything, it's like there are kids who like to do theater, and then they come out of the walled garden, and then they go to math class, and they go to English class, and then they go to social studies, and then they go to health, and then maybe they go home, or maybe they come back for rehearsals later on that afternoon. And it's almost like it's sort of disconnected. And I'm imagining that, well, you know, from my teeny tiny experience in learning about theater, I have seen so many crossovers where, you know, the regular classroom setting could really benefit from it. The teaching could benefit from it. The student creativity could benefit from it. And in many ways, you know, it makes me think that maybe we need to open up the gates to that walled garden and like let everybody kind of crisscross in between the two different worlds. And so Natasha, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that some of the skills and concepts and ideas from theater and improv and all of that can definitely benefit the regular classroom setting?
Absolutely. I mean, 100%. You know, I think, look, we can speak as adults and we know how important it is in our workplace, how important it is to be ourselves. And when we feel comfortable and we are able to express ourselves, we do the best at our jobs. And that is no different for students. When students feel comfortable, when they feel safe, when they're able to speak their mind, they also tend to flourish and really kind of reach their full potential. And that's what theatre and drama is able to give students. It gives them an opportunity to kind of harness these particular skills, that wherever they take them, in school or out of school, they can feel more confident. They can feel like they can connect with each other better. They get to know themselves better, that they can develop a different type of communication that is relevant for all aspects of their life. So there's absolutely a place for the skills that we learn in theatre and drama in every part of their life, especially within school. And I think one thing that I've noticed is really important is that we need to teach our students that there is not always such a thing as right or wrong. You know, we so often get caught up in perfectionism, and it's not sustainable. And I think that some of the skills that you learn within theatre can really teach you this kind of element of playfulness, and that you can play with lots of different ideas, and there's no right or wrong. And that is very comforting. So there's absolutely a place for it outside of just the drama room.
Yeah. I love how you put that, because in so many places out in the quote unquote real world, you know, there really isn't a right or a wrong. In the education setting, it feels like we put such an emphasis on that. And then it's almost like, you know, we turn students loose out into the world of work and, you know, our social lives and everything. And we start to see it that way. And I think it might even create, you know, some unnecessary anxiety and just sort of a distorted view of the world. So
yeah, I think, you know, the other thing that is really important that I think drama is great for is relationship building. You get to have a level of empathy with different characters within drama. And when you can then take that to your real life, you're able to build on communication skills with not only your peers, but also your teachers. And I think in a school setting, we often think of, teachers as sort of in a more sort of hierarchical position and students in a lesser position. And whilst that might be the technical way that it is, actually, in theory, we're all human. And to be able to remind students of that really allows us to build connectivity, which honestly is more important now than it ever has been. We live in a world of constant technology and it claims to be connecting us, but actually we're feeling more disconnected and lonely and isolated more than ever before. So things like drama and theatre and those kind of skills that come with it, that can build on connection, it's absolutely vital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think, Batsheva? Go ahead.
I was just going to add, I mean, really, there's not that much to add. She really said it so beautifully. But I was just thinking, yeah, these ideas of collaboration are so important. And also, when we're doing theater, there's two things. There's theater and also improvisation, which is kind of a subset. But in theater, we have the idea that we rehearse, and then there's a product. And I think a lot of times in schools, we don't have the sort of, with assignments in regular classes, we don't have that sort of rehearsal. We don't have that sense of we can try something and we can fail and we can refine and we can, and continue to work on it. It always feels like everything's just like, here's your assignment, do it. It's either right or it's wrong or whatever it is. But it's such an important concept to be able to bring that into to all classrooms, about this idea of sort of rehearsing, of refining, of continuing to work on something and feeling like we could get it right. And then also, again, like Natasha said, about working with other people, collaborating. And then the other thing with improvisation, which I know we're going to talk about later, but it really refines and in general, listening skills, observational skills, those are crucial. Critical thinking skills, these are all so crucial when we're dealing with theater, and we need to be able to bring those skills into our classrooms. And one way to do that is to bring in drama and improv, theater and improv, into classrooms that are of all subjects.
Yes. No, I totally agree with you on that. And I think the reason I'm so excited that the both of you are a part of this summit is, a lot of the focus of this, our key theme is their voice, their world. And so a lot of that is, students using their voice, through audio or through whatever means, to try to make some sort of change. And, I think that the skills and the strategies and the ideas that we're talking about here fit really nicely with that in a wide variety of arenas. So, and Batsheva, you were talking about how you've got theater in general, and then one subset of it is improv, right?
Right.
See, for someone who's not as up on this as I am, it's good for me to get that clear. So, so maybe we start with theater in general. And so I would love for us to just kind of bounce around some general ideas of what are some things that students would learn in theater, or actors might learn as they do what they do, and some ways that could cross over into the classroom. So, if either of you have something to start this conversation, go ahead and take it away.
Well, I use theater all the time in teaching, and I did it the first year. I started it the first year because I actually had no idea what I was doing. And so I was like, well, this is how I would want to learn how to do something. So I did all kinds of, having students write scenes and scripts. I was teaching history at the time, and I would have them perform different scenes from history, or the in-between things that we don't know about, like what do you imagine what that might be like, and perform it. And the students loved it. And the other element that I added, because I didn't want to forget this, is that not everybody is a performer. And so there's also the elements of the people who have to think about the costumes and the props and the lighting, and that all of that is really important. And then when students think about that, I mean, I was doing this with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and they were amazing. And they had to really think about everything really critically in order to make all the elements of theater come together. And I saw the life-changing effect that it had on my students. They loved it, and they did some really profound and amazing things. And so I've always been searching always for all the different ways that I can bring that into everything that I teach. And also when I'm consulting with other people and telling other subjects that I don't teach, helping them figure out how can I give students voice and have them really connect to the material in a creative and interesting way. And so, maybe later I'll share some ideas with everybody of what
Yes.
they could do
Yeah.
in their classrooms.
Yes, let's definitely do that. Absolutely. So, Tasha, how about you? What are some ways that you think that this that theater could collide with the classroom?
Just speaking sort of more specifically on improvisation, I mean, there's a space for improvisation. It's about creating something spontaneously. And the truth is that actually we use improvisation in almost every single thing that we do, because no matter how much we prepare in life for any given situation, none of us can predict the future. So there's actually a level of improvisation in everything that we do, because ultimately it's about being agile and flexible. And once you're able to sort of accept this and master this, you'll find that you're incredibly resilient. And that is what so many of us need to be reminded of. We have actually all of these skills within us, and it's just about sort of bringing them to the surface. So there's a real space for improvisation, not just in the classroom, but in life in general. And it's exciting, when we talk about improv in the theatre space, there's lots of ways to be super creative and have fun and playfulness. And that is really important, because we're often looking for external sort of stimuli to help us deal with our kind of anxiety or stress, or ways to relax. And actually what we have is something deep within all of us, which is our imagination. And being able to utilize that in an effective way through improvisation can help all of us. So yeah, definitely there is space for it. And yeah, absolutely would happily share some tips and games later on.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, since we're kind of touching on that a little bit right now, and if anybody that's watching this is anything like me, that's the kind of stuff that I love, is whenever I can get specific tips or specific ideas, like the application of it, so if you're both game for going straight into application, some tips, some ideas, some practical classroom things, that kind of thing. Okay, I'm saying nods from both of you. This is a good sign. So wonderful. So Batsheva, since you brought it up a little bit earlier and you've had a little bit of time to think while Natasha was talking, let me just kick it down to you real quick and give us some ideas of how this might look.
Sure. So there's so many ways that you can do it. And I'll just mention a few things that I've done or I've helped other people create for their classes. And hopefully that'll inspire some ideas from anyone who is watching and listening. So, for example, in history, let's say it's the American Revolution. So I do something called American Revolutionary Celebs interviews. And so students have to research a person from that time period. It can be any time period anywhere. They research it, and it's really interesting if you can find people that maybe aren't the most well known, and give voice to those people and really letting the students choose, like giving them a lot of room to choose who they're going to be. And then they create that person, and they have to give a spiel about who they are, as if they're on a talk show. And then there's a host, as one of the students, and they can take turns being the host, asking interview questions, and the person stays in character. And it's so much fun. And then everybody really learns who these people are and what they're doing on such a better level than just, reading it in a textbook or even watching a film about it. But they actually get to recreate that person. So that's just one idea. There's history, you can do so many things, different kinds of role playing, and looking at big ideas through role playing. for that. The other thing, like for English, I've done a literary tea party where my students all dress up as a character and bring a prop from it as a character from one of the books that we've studied. And they have to come prepared to, and this is kind of a little bit of the improv element, they have to come prepared to ask another literary character, very specific, they have to choose ahead of time who they want to ask advice from, who they want to give advice to, which literary character do they want to give advice to. So, it might be that, Celie from The Color Purple is giving advice to Lizzie Bennett from Pride and Prejudice. So it gets really crazy and fun and interesting, but you really also can tell what the students know about what they're learning. So I use a lot of these kinds of performances or at least a performance choice, as an assessment, like as a final for a unit. So one of the craziest things I ever saw and most amazing was the musical version of The Scarlet Letter that my students did. It was insane and amazing and incredible, and it really showed me that they really understood what was happening. I also wanted to share just some ideas for things that I don't teach, like chemistry, because it seems like really obvious in the humanities. There's a million ways you can use it, but it's also great for science. You can do in chemistry, for example, you can have a party where every character in this party is a different element. And as they're meeting people, you have to see how do they relate to that other element at the party. Are they repelled by that element? Do they, and it's based on what you know about the chemical elements. And you can see what the students like. Do they understand how all the chemicals literally react to each other as if they're at a party? And the other thing is in math, we did a thing called, I have to get the title right because it was funny. Oh, Finding My Ex, an algebraic love story. So it's great to do things like that. There's so many students who think that they don't relate to math or they don't relate to science. And so this is a great way to help them understand concepts by creating, these stories around it, by creating these characters that seem abstract, but you can make them into something. And then they have such a deeper connection and a deeper understanding of it.
Oh my goodness. I adore this. This is so much fun. While you were talking about this, I realized that an idea that I shared recently on my blog is actually a theater idea. So I wanted to share that with you both real quick if I could, because I was thinking of how during remote learning situations that so many schools are in, or even in face-to-face learning situations, a lot of students are doing more and more with video because it's easier to create video than it has been. But really, this could be done with audio too. I like to take some of the genres from, I say genres very loosely here, from YouTube that some of the YouTubers do that are popular and see if I can cross those over into the classroom. And one of those is the unboxing video. Have you ever watched an unboxing video? Somebody gets a new cell phone or a new box of makeup or a toy or something, and then they open it up and you get to see their reactions and everything. I started thinking, how cool would this be as an academic task? Because you see, you could start with a box and you could come up with who is going to be the sender of the box. And then you could come up with who is the receiver of the box. Is the recipient the student? Are they playing themselves? Or is the student playing someone else? And why was the box sent? And then, of course, you put things inside the box and then they press record, they give the context, and then they start unboxing. So this one that I have pre-created right here is a box to me from 20 years in the past.
I love it.
Yeah. And so see, what you can do is you can have a little letter to yourself and you open it up and you say, "Dear Matt, I just want you to remember what your roots were like when things weren't quite the way they are today, because perspective is key." And so I take my little note and I put it away and I go, "Oh my goodness. Do you remember when we used to use these things to save?" And you couldn't even hardly put like megabytes onto this thing, let alone gigabytes, And then, do you remember when we didn't listen to music on Spotify, but we used these things, with the antennas? And if you couldn't quite get it in, you'd just go set it over by the window, or you'd have to put your arm up in the air or something and try and get it to come in. And you just keep pulling things out of the box. And of course, while you do that, you get an opportunity to react to the item. And you also get to put it in context, and you get to express your feelings. And of course, if you're playing the part of a character, you're acting as if you're that person. And so you have to be deeply involved with what that person would think.
I love that idea so much. It's like my brain is just, can you see the sparks flying? Two things that I love what you did, because I think it's such a great getting to know you thing, but also a student could do themselves in the future. What is your future self going to set? What box is your future self going to send, so that people can, think about what they want in the future, how they view themselves in the future, what do you see in the future? And the other thing I was thinking of is, again, like doing literature or history, to be a historical character, getting this box from, another historical character. Or if you are a character in a book, what's your unboxing from, I keep using Pride and Prejudice, but if you're Lizzie Bennet and you received a box from Darcy, Mr. Darcy, like, what is that? What's in that box, and how do you react to it? I mean, the possibilities are endless, Matt. That's such an amazing idea. I love it. Yeah.
There you go. So if anybody's watching this and you want to go check this out and get a tutorial and some ideas and everything, ditchthattextbook.com/unboxing. Go check it out right there. So anyway, sorry to hijack the conversation.
No, that's not hijack. That's a beautiful. We call that improvisation. What do we call that, Natasha? We call that yes and. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
there you go.
That's something, and then you add to it with the and that's, we can talk about that too, but that's such a crucial thing that students can learn from improvisation, that idea of yes and, instead of no or yes but. It's a whole mindset that one can apply to everything in their life, but also, in the classroom. And it changes the nature of conversations that we have with people, especially people that we might not agree with, to be able to say yes. And have you thought about this? Like, add to that conversation, because that's a key thing that you do in improvisation.
Right. Exactly. Okay. Natasha, your patience. I really appreciate your patience.
I feel like I'm learning so much from this. It's absolutely wonderful. And look, that's the best thing about these conversations is that everything's a collaboration. You learn new things, you get new ideas, you take an existing idea, you sort of change it up a little bit, and you have a completely fresh idea. I think it's amazing. It's a pleasure to sit here and listen. And I think Batsheva has given some incredible tools. They incorporate storytelling and role play, and this kind of experiential learning it's so wonderful, because it can really teach skills that we don't necessarily kind of think about immediately, such as relatability, emotional intelligence, problem solving, critical thinking, and all of those things exist. And we don't naturally think of drama and theatre skills and improv skills as providing those, but they absolutely do. And I think, I really think that Batsheva has given some wonderful ideas for anybody who's out there listening. I think some of the sort of, I guess, games and exercises that I would maybe like to focus on is actually kind of warm-ups. I think that there's a really big space for physical, mental, vocal warm-ups that can be applied to any classroom, that really complement a lot of the games and exercises that Batsheva has kind of already mentioned. So one thing that I really love to do with my students, especially if it's a new group of people that I'm working with, but actually I think it works as something that you could do in almost every class, or at least once a week. And it's kind of this idea of doing an icebreaker game, just, something on a Monday morning to get everybody refocused and working together and creating relatability. So what I would do is, for that specific class, I would come up with a list of maybe 10 statements. It could be, depending on the age range and who it is that you're working with. But for example, you can say something like, I have been in my pajamas all day long. And you ask everyone to simply, especially if you're working online, you just simply ask people to raise their hand. And you kind of get to know everyone a little bit better, but also everyone else gets to know each other. And that relatability factor is great. So you start off with something simple like, I've been in pajamas all day. Then it becomes, well, I have Googled myself before. Like, you'll be surprised how many people put their hand up for that. Or, I have stalked a crush online before. And you can kind of get quite playful with it, but it often makes young people really laugh. And I think, sometimes there can be tension at school. You don't know what the relationship is like between students. And I think this is a really great way to bring everybody together at the beginning of a class so that there is collaboration all the way throughout the rest of the lesson. So that's something that I really like to do. And, you can get really creative with those statements, especially as you get to know the students more, what works. Another thing I really like to do is just generally doing kind of a bit of a face, voice, body warm up. So, we do this a lot in theatre. It's kind of just a simple face massage, kind of massaging your face out. I think especially at a time like now where a lot of us are remote working, we're spending a lot of time online, we end up carrying a lot of tension in our face. So bringing some attention to that area is always really helpful. And you can make it playful. You can say, we're going to now eat the world's biggest piece of bubble gum, and we're going to put it in our mouth and chew. And we're really just sort of stretching out these muscles. And it's a very simple, fun thing to do, but actually it can really help students without them even realizing that they carry tension in these places. Then I would sort of move on to just doing a really quick body stretch, just kind of stretching out your arms, your legs, your hips. We sit in a classroom or, we're sitting at home staring at a computer screen so many hours a day at the moment. It's not ideal for our bodies. So just to be able to bring awareness to our body, I think it can help us feel really connected, especially if you have young people who perhaps are feeling stressed or anxious. This is a really great way to bring them kind of back to feeling quite centered. And just on that, another exercise that's really great is anything to do with breathing, anything that can bring your focus back to breathing. And, as actors, that's something that we absolutely have to focus on. So square breathing, so asking your students to take a nice breath in for the count of 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, exhaling for 4 seconds, and then holding for 4 seconds. And doing this a few times just to help everyone feel a little bit more grounded and get that circulation going. We're so guilty, all of us are guilty of shallow breathing far too often. And at times when we feel stressed, we need to rely on our body. Our body's there to help us, but we've got to look after it. So things like that can be very important by way of warm up. And in terms of games, one of my absolute favorite games is a kind of mime scenario. And this works really well online, where you simply give a scenario and you just ask your students to act it out. And the kind of scenarios that I like to give are scenarios that have several different emotions within them. Because I think, we, especially living in a world of social media, we are looking at life in a very one-dimensional way these days. And I think that we forget that actually humans are very complex. We are made up of so many different emotions within a very short space of time. I know I definitely have a lot of emotions in short periods of time. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I would give a mime scenario saying, you have just won an Oscar award, but soon after you've received it, they announce that it's not actually for you. And you ask the students to just kind of act that out at home. And the reason I like giving these kind of complicated scenarios is that you get to think about a range of emotions, because that's the truth for life, isn't it? Is that one thing can happen and we can feel happy, excited, frustrated, nervous, scared, all at the exact same time. And that's okay. And I think bringing some awareness back to your kind of emotional health in everything we do has real value. So, there's lots of different scenarios. Another one is, you're a very famous chef and you have a critic coming to your restaurant, but none of your staff are listening to you. And, you kind of have to think about like, okay, well, I really want to do a good job. No one's listening to me and that's frustrating, but I want to keep my cool because I have a big day ahead. And anything that kind of involves that kind of emotional awareness, I'm a big fan of. So I hope some of those things are helpful.
Yeah, and if you, just to piggyback on that for a minute, a couple things. One of them is that you can do that with younger kids too, and you can do that with emotional. I mean, even like really young kids, like 3-4-year-olds, to maybe not the complexity of it, but you can have them. What is it what's sad? Let's make a sad face. Let's make a, what's a happy face? What makes you happy? How are you happy? What a surprise face. And it teaches students to, the young uns, to how to connect with each other and how to have empathy for each other, and so forth. And the other thing that I wanted to say about what Natasha said that is so important is, we learn a lot of the breathing and the warm-ups and a lot of relaxation exercises. And those are so helpful to students. Like, I teach students who get really anxious before, not my test because I don't give tests, but before a test, or if they're anxious about something that's coming up, I teach them the relaxation exercises that I learned at NYU, when I was a drama major. And it's so helpful, and they can take that tool with them for the rest of their life. I do. It's been quite a while since I graduated, and I still do that. I still do a lot of those if I know that I'm going to do something that's a little bit stressful, or if I'm performing or whatever I'm doing, I take those breaths, like Natasha said. It's so crucial. And then just learn how, and just relax. It lets a student's real voice come out when they are relaxed and when they are breathing. It's really, really important to give them voice.
Yeah, that is absolutely vital. And I think, again, it's something that we don't naturally associate with drama. We think drama is all very big and exaggerated, but actually it can teach you these skills of inner calm. And I think one of the things that I really like to do at the end of every lesson I teach is a visualization exercise, which is kind of on the back of what Batsheva is saying in terms of relaxation. So I would like to do, I like to do a visualization exercise whereby asking everyone to just kind of close their eyes, take a few deep breaths. And, you can either make something up or you can find something online, but I often ask them to I walk them through a scenario whereby, I say, think of your favorite place. You're in your favorite place. Think about the weather. Think about what you can feel. Think about the mood. Is it daytime? Is it nighttime? Then I want you to imagine, for example, a big tree in the background. And I kind of take them on this journey where I personally like to use something nature orientated because I find that to be the most calming. So, there's a big tree, you walk up to the tree, you touch the tree, you're imagining it. You think about what the branches are like, you think about the birds in the tree, and you kind of take them on this journey until eventually they are completely at one with the tree. They're part of the tree. And you take them on this journey, and I'd be very happy to share kind of a fuller example later, or sort of afterwards. But the reason that is so great is that we are reminding young people that when they are feeling nervous and anxious and they need to relax, instead of relying on kind of external sort of situations or exercises, there is something that we all have internally, and it can be accessed at any time. And if you create that for them, they create this safe space. Every time they close their eyes and they need to go to their safe space, they can do that, and they have the power to do that. And we forget that sometimes. So yeah, I really think visualization is very similar to meditation, but it's slightly more guided, which I think is more useful for young people. So yeah, absolutely key to implement those relaxation techniques.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. This has been so good already. I'm thrilled at this. I'm looking back through my notes of all the things I've been putting on the screen. We have all of these warm-ups. We have all of these ideas. I also want to say that I'm so glad that you both touched on breathing. I won't harp on this because I could talk on and on and on about it, but I was very fortunate to get to go to a sort of intensive public speaker training that was led by someone who graduated from the Yale Theater School and the NYU Theater School, and I think got their masters in it. And so they led us through an awful lot of these exact same things you were talking about. And I have to tell you, I just did it. I get stuck breathing out of the top of my lungs, and I never realized how much how freeing that, I mean, not just like freeing, but like how much I take these little shallow breaths, especially when I'm doing something like this. And, just the power of just stopping and taking a deep breath, and I feel it fall out of my shoulders. And all of a sudden I'm like a different person whenever I got to do it again. I take that big, deep breath. It makes all the difference in the world. And just the fact that you keep bringing up all of these things. And I wanted us to take just a quick second here to again kind of dispel some of the myths, because I know whenever we start talking about some of these things like face warm-ups and relaxation exercises and yes and the algebraic love story, like all of this stuff. I know that there are some teachers that, and they're probably not the ones watching this, but there are some of them that will go, yeah, but I teach physics, and like, really? And I mean, even for me, who's not trained in this, my answer is, yeah, really. So I wondered if either of you could take that, like, with some of these things we've talked about and others, I think this is valid in many ways in lots of different classrooms, right?
Oh my gosh, physics, amazing. Any physics teacher who's out there, get a hold of me. I will give you 20 things that you could do that would be so amazing in your physics classes. I mean, there's improvs you can do, like you can have, if there's an experiment that you're setting up or you want to show them properties of, physics, to have them kind of do it in motion, their bodies in motion to do that is just fantastic. I wanted to mention something before we continue on with that. That was that has to do with, what do you do in remote learning times, right? Like, what do we do? And so I was thinking about it. One of the things that I've been helping people to do is, and kids love this of all ages, is stuffed animal theater. And or Lego theater, and or weird puppet show things you can, weird things you can find around your house to make like the weirdest puppets, like, and so that they can recreate something. So yes, it's ideal if you're in real space in real time, but it can still happen in a creative and fun way. And we have even like a TV screen. It's like right there around our heads. And I can do, some kid puppet show to explain the properties of physics, with all of the, and do, pretend like I am, the science, whatever. And I'm not going to say the science guy, but whoever, and, or the puppets or whatever, to show teach all the properties, of science that I need to teach, or whatever it is, I can act out photosynthesis, or something. I mean, there's so many things that we can do, even in our little, Zoomy spaces. And so I don't want people to feel like, yeah, that's great. And when we are all together and can, get less than 6 feet from each other and unmasked, that'll be wonderful. But you can actually do those things right now. And they're really, really important. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, on that, I think the thing that all teachers and anyone listening kind of needs to remember is that not everybody learns in the same way. So you could be the best teacher, but there's going to perhaps be some students who might not engage with that way of, sort of being taught. And so to be able to implement new ideas, you don't know who you're going to be able to access in a completely new way. And that's why it's important to be open-minded about trying some of these new things, because it could engage students that you didn't expect. And that's what is really beautiful about this, kind of thinking about physics. You could take a concept that you're trying to explain and play a game called One Word Story, where you ask every student to say one word at a time, or even one sentence at a time. And it's kind of off the cuff, but ultimately they're trying to explain a theory or concept that you've taught them in physics. And it's a way to kind of know if they've understood what you've taught them, to help them remember it, to sort of repeat it. And these things are so excellent. So perhaps they shouldn't necessarily be thought of as, drama specific games, but rather just new learning tools that could engage your students in a different way. And I really kind of just want to say that my background is actually in law. I studied law at university, and I was in the corporate world for a very long time. And very, very honestly, theatre was what gave me the ability to do that. I was a fine kid at school, but when I found theatre, it gave me a level of confidence, and it gave me a sense of self, and I knew myself so much better because of it. But allow me to go on and do something that was incredibly academic. So we've got to remember that the skills that come through are vital and relevant for all parts of life. It's not just about, drama is just, and theatre skills, they're just some fun games that maybe you play.
Right.
They are vital for so many things in our lives.
Yeah. I want to add the what you were talking about with the one-word story. Excuse me. It's a great improv for language classes because and I've taught that to language teachers of how to do it, because it helps students think on their feet. Actually, all improvs, questions only is a great, and you can look all of these up, but only questions or questions only, however you want to phrase it. There's so many things that you could do in a language class, because if you think about it, like my French teacher was amazing, and we would write these skits and these radio plays, which, by the way, amazing for language to write a radio play and record it, and a podcast. Awesome ideas. But we didn't have podcasts back then. We wrote these radio plays and these other skits, and it was really, really fun. But the reason why improv is really great in a language class is because when you go to another country, unfortunately, what other people say to you is not going to be scripted. And what you're going to reply to them is also not going to be scripted. You have to think really fast in that language. And so doing improv games in another language actually helps you with that, trying to find the word quickly, thinking on your feet. And that's exactly what happens when we speak a language we don't know. We have to react quickly. So they're perfect for language classes.
No, I totally agree. And, to touch back on the idea of, does this, do these theater concepts help in other disciplines? I'm kind of thinking that if we have different mental models of new things that we're trying to learn, if we learn them in different ways, they're kind of stored in different parts of your brain or in different ways, which makes them easier to recall in the future. For instance, I'll go back to that public speaking program that I got into, and we talked about, blocking and staging. And so we talked about, the movement in our bodies. And one of the benefits of doing that, of course, is that you're using, the spatial part of, your body and your brain, and you're using that to remember. And so, for instance, whenever I do keynote speeches for teachers, there are parts of my speech that I remember because I get into a certain position with my body, and that hooks it in there.
Muscle memory is what that's called.
Right. Yes, exactly. And so that makes me think, if, we kind of play with the idea of, the spatial being of it, or visualization, or, any of that stuff, that might be the one thing that helps. I almost use the word unlock that for the student, but I could even see it locking into their long-term memory. That's the thing that really connects it for them. So it's just here, let's throw another theater idea into this. It's contrast, isn't it? I mean, if you're so used to words and numbers and things on a paper, and then all of a sudden you throw it over to, let's play with these ideas and let's come up with something on the fly, that's contrast, and it makes you feel like you're not so much in a rut anymore, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Batsheva, you were talking earlier about podcasting. You just kind of threw that out there, and I wanted to grab onto that for just a second, because I feel like, especially if, and podcasting obviously is something that is, kind of taking off in education in a variety of different areas, from the littles to the bigs, the young ones, the older ones. And I feel like there is a place for some of the things we've been talking about, and some of the things we haven't yet to talk about, that could play into that, because you could create a podcast episode or a series of podcast episodes on just about anything you learn in just about any class. And I feel like some of these things fit into that nicely. So I thought, maybe I could kick this over to the two of you and just let you. Now, we didn't script this question, so I'm kind of throwing this at him as a curveball.
It's improv. We're good at it.
It is, right. Yeah, exactly. And so I thought I would kick this to the both of you to see, what are some things related to theater and improv that could help if a student or if a class wanted to do some podcasting? And Natasha, can I throw that over to you first?
Yeah, for sure. So when you say they want to do a podcast, is it on anything in particular or just could be anything?
I'm going to leave it really wide open just so, so you two can take it whatever direction you'd like.
Absolutely. The absolute first thing is you got to trust yourself, right? If you trust yourself, you've got to trust that whatever you end up saying is okay. I think sometimes we all in life can be guilty of overthinking, what am I going to say? And as you said, kind of scripting or over rehearsing. And the truth is none of us can predict the future. None of us can know exactly what's going to happen in the moment. So just being able to trust yourself and sort of doing the warm-up exercises and just having that kind of inner belief that whatever is going to come out is okay. That's a really important part of that, I think. I also think that it's really important not to be distracted by other people. I think that, again, in life, we get distracted by what other people are saying or the way that they might look at us, and which is not such a big deal on a podcast, but just to be really focused on what it is that you want to deliver, the information that you want to deliver. If you've come together to do a podcast, hopefully it's because you've got some knowledge that you want to share and you want to put out there. Put it out there. Don't be distracted by anyone else's comments and that sort of self-belief. I think that those are the two things I would say are really important.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Yeah. Batsheva?
Well, obviously I love podcasting because to me, it's like the greatest joy. It's such a combination of my passions for performance and for my passion about great education. And one of the things that I love about podcasting for students, many things, but one of them is it really gives them a voice. It really gives them a voice in an authentic way. I've been listening to this podcast called, I think it's called The Unknown Known, by this high school kid named Jain who talks about philosophy. And it's just him talking about these deep philosophical concepts. And I'm so blown away by it. I don't even understand sometimes what he's saying, but it is so genius and so amazing. And it's him getting a chance to have a voice in this world. And I think it's such a beautiful chance. Everybody, every single student has something beautiful to share with the world. And so podcasting is just such an amazing way to do that. And there's so many different kinds of podcasts, right? Because there's scripted ones that are more like radio theater that are super fun. And I do commercial parodies on my podcast that's kind of like a little bit like that. There's interviews, so that helps students do interviews. And I've actually interviewed students on my show. And I love when they talk, these like 11-year-olds, 13-year-olds. They have so much to say and they're so interesting, and it's such a lovely way to give them an opportunity to be creative, to think about what do they have to say in this world, and to believe in themselves. So I think it's just incredible. It's a great gift.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. I think also, I'm sure, because I know I've definitely felt this way, that there's a sort of level of feeling a little bit self-conscious when you're doing these things. So just a reminder, and we touched on it earlier, that there is no such thing as right or wrong. If you're being your most authentic self, it's already sort of right, as it were. And I think that this is a really great way to remind people that it's okay to make mistakes as well. Like, we make mistakes in life all of the time. I'm sure if I watch this interview back, I'll be like, oh, I wish I had said something different, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth is, it's a really great lesson in this idea of failure. Because actually there isn't anything. There's no such thing as failure. There's only lessons learned. And I think that that's something really great that can come out from doing things like podcasts. You speak your mind, you be authentic. If it doesn't quite come out the way that you want it to, that's okay. We're all human. And
that's what good editing is for. Yeah, I teach my students how to edit. And then you can, reflect on what you've said and refine it and edit it.
Yeah. And even if you feel like there's something that isn't exactly how you wanted, it creates relatability. I really think sometimes when things are super structured and perfect, it can be difficult to relate to that. And actually, when you're much more human, you'll probably get a much bigger audience. So yeah, I think that's a great way to do that too.
Yeah. You know, this is the perfect segue to the last question. Can you believe that we're at the end of this and this is our last question? I feel like we could just, talk about this for hours and hours. There's still so much that we could still cover. But this is the question that I'm wrapping all of the interviews up with, and I'm fascinated to hear your answer to it. And the answer is very simply this: what can we do to help students use their voices to change the world? I'm asking everybody the same question, and I'm curious to hear. There have been some very short answers to it. There, sort of short, pithy answers. There have been some longer ones. Really curious to hear what you think about that. So, which one of you wants to take that one first?
What?
I can go, sure. Use it. That's what I would say in a very short, sharp way. Use your voice. Do not be afraid to use your voice. You have something important to say. It doesn't matter where you're from, how old you are, or any experience that you've had. What you have to say is valid, so say it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Batsheva?
Yeah. And I think that there's so many amazing tools to do that. Like we were just talking about podcasting. That's exactly what it does. So to find the thing that a student is passionate about and then put it out there in the world in however you do that. And I think one of the beauties of theater and improvisation and bringing it into all classes is that it does give students a chance to try out their voice, try to figure out who they are and try these different voices and see what it is that's going to resonate with them, and then give them the tools to be able to feel really confident, like Natasha was saying, to feel really confident about putting it out there. And so I just think, and letting students know that their voice matters in this world, not only in the future, which we want to train them and help them to really be able to make great changes in the future, but right now, their voice matters, whether they're 4 years old or they're 10 years old or they're 17 years old. It doesn't matter. They have something important to say right now.
That's brilliant. But all of it. This has been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I hate to bring this to a close, but we're gonna go ahead and start to wrap this up. So as we're finishing this up, if anybody's watched this and they've gone, oh my goodness, I need more of these two ladies in my life, like in some way, where are the best places for them to find you online through social media, websites, whatever it is? If you have other resources that you could share with them that could be helpful related to this topic. Natasha, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So the best way to get in touch with me is via my email. And my email address is nvjain15@gmail.com. You can also find me on Instagram. My handle is @JaineYjain, which is JAINEYJAIN.
Excellent. All right. So we'll leave that up there for just a second. And Batsheva, how about you?
Okay. So the best way to reach me personally, if somebody's interested in workshops or consulting or coaching or any of those things or ideas or whatever they want, is batsheva@newlensed.com. It kind of looks like new lensed, but yep. And they can find my podcast is Overthrowing Education. It's everywhere. And my Twitter is Overthrowing Ed. And my Instagram is Overthrowing Education. And my website is newlensed.com. And you can also check out overthrowingeducation.com for my podcast. I think that covers pretty much everything.
Most of them up there. I don't think I got totally all of them. By the way, I have to say that I am a fan of Overthrowing Education, and I actually have the mug
to prove it. Because
yes.
That's because you are an amazing guest, and all of my guests have to play a game show, and Matt won the game show, so he got a mug.
Which scared me to death, but I played along, and it turned out okay. See, I survived to live another day, so... Oh my goodness, this has been fantastic. There have been so many practical takeaways. I just absolutely love this conversation. Natasha and Batsheva, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you for watching this video and for being a part of the Soundtrap Education Summit. And we'll hope to see you on another video. So take care, and we'll see you later.